My beloved souls, a snake can shed its skin, but it's still a snake, just more slippery, harder to detect, and bolder in the dark. But here's the truth. Even snakes eventually get stepped on. That's what's happening now. The ones who slithered behind your back, who bit your character when you weren't looking, they're finally getting exposed. And it's not just exposure, it's divine retribution. Public, swift, and irreversible. They lied on your name like it was sport. They whispered venom while smiling to your face. They laughed behind closed doors, thinking they'd never get caught. They orchestrated whole campaigns of gossip, spiritual attacks, and manipulation just to see you fall. But they forgot one law that never misses. What you sow, you shall reap. And now the harvest is coming in, but it's not wheat, it's weeds. And they're choking on their own deception. But let's be real. Chosen one, you knew something was off all along, didn't you? That shift in energy, that sudden coldness, that subtle envy they tried to mask with forced compliments. You weren't crazy, you were discerning. And instead of reacting, you watched. You stayed still. You let them dig their own holes while you planted roots in silence. And I want to pause for a second right here and say something from the heart. Thank you to every one of you who's been standing strong, showing up, and especially to those who've supported this message through super thanks. Whether you've donated before or are just discovering this platform today, know this: your generosity keeps this truth flowing, reaching and freeing others just like you. And even if you never give $1, please understand, you are still deeply appreciated. Your energy, your comments, your presence, they matter more than you know. Because this message isn't just content, it's confirmation. This is not some dramatic rant about betrayal. This is a divine unraveling of everything they thought they'd get away with. It's the receipts showing up. It's the masks sliding off. It's the untouchables getting touched by consequences so divine. No lawyer, no charm, no social media strategy can shield them. This is spiritual order being restored. This is justice, heaven style. You didn't destroy them. They destroyed themselves trying to destroy you. And now, you're not just surviving, you're glowing, you're expanding, you're prospering while they panic. You're walking into rooms they swore you'd never qualify for with grace, with peace, and with a story that would shake the bones of those who tried to erase you. So don't scroll away. Stay with me till the very last word, because we're about to walk through the entire breakdown. The betrayals, the backlashes, the energy flips. You're not here by accident. You're here to witness how the truth always returns, with thunder. And if you're ready, type 777 in the comments, so I know you're locked in. Let's expose the snakes and crown the chosen. Because this is your moment. Let's begin. God's chosen ones. They're getting hit from every side. Karma is tearing their world apart. Number 1. The illusion of winning is cracking and you're watching it collapse from a higher place. Chosen one. How many times did they think they were flying, only to realize too late that it was all air and ego? How many times did they parade themselves around like kings and queens of chaos, stacking their thrones out of gossip, manipulation, and counterfeit confidence? They mistook noise for power, didn't they? They truly believed they had dominion over your name, your energy, your destiny. But tell me, how do you win a war? You started with lies, when the truth was always on silent standby. They built illusions out of shadows, whispered deceit into ears they assumed would never hear truth again, and moved like they were 10 steps ahead. But they weren't playing chess. They were flipping checker pieces on a chessboard they didn't even understand. They thought they were strategic, but weren't they just desperate? Let's pause and ask, how do you know if someone's truly powerful or just loud? Because that's what it came down to. They weren't powerful, just noisy, loud enough to fool the crowd, loud enough to fool themselves, but not loud enough to rewrite your truth, not loud enough to rewrite your destiny. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness. Isaiah 5:20. You see, the illusion of winning is one of the oldest tricks in the enemy's playbook. It plays on ego. It wraps a person in the false sense that they can control outcomes, manipulate perception, and play God in people's lives. And they leaned into Ethard. They believed if they could make you look small, they would look powerful. If they could twist your story, they'd stay on top. But they forgot. The universe doesn't need to yell to deliver justice. It simply moves precise, silent, undeniable. Just ask Will Smith. After years of being seen as Hollywood's golden figure, one public mistake shattered his illusion of control and image. It wasn't a single moment that defined him, it was the years of pressure, unresolved pain, and illusion that caught up to him in front of the world. That's what happens when karma arrives to collect where healing never happened. Chosen one. Have you ever wondered why your silence unsettled them more than your words ever could? It's because real power doesn't perform. It doesn't manipulate to be seen, and it surely doesn't crumble under lies. You stayed quiet, not because you were weak, but because you were aligned. While they were trying to destroy your image, you were refining your soul. While they staged their performances, you were preparing your next elevation. The Lord is my defender. I will not be afraid. What can man do to me? Psalm 118:6. Every fake smile they gave, every lie they spoke, every room they poisoned, those were receipts. And guess what? The bill is due. Karma doesn't forget. It doesn't flinch. And it doesn't wait for applause. It moves at divine timing. And chosen one, this is divine timing. Look around. Can't you feel it? The unraveling has started. And it's not because you fought back. It's because you didn't. You let their chaos reveal them. You didn't match their pettiness. You let the universe show what they really are. Loud magicians running out of tricks. Now they're trying to pull the same drama on a crowd that's no longer watching. The stage is empty. The illusion? Broken. Whoever walks in integrity walks securely. But whoever takes crooked paths will be found out. Proverbs 10:9. They laughed at your distance. They mocked your stillness. But tell me, were you hiding? Or were you healing? They thought you retreated in fear. But in truth, you were being fortified in silence. And now that you're standing in your truth, grounded, elevated, renewed, they don't know what to do. Why? Because the version of you they thought they manipulated doesn't exist anymore. Let's talk about Elon Musk. People dismissed him when Tesla was collapsing, laughed when SpaceX rockets exploded. They called him delusional. But while critics were speaking, he was building. Now those same doubters can't keep up. And it wasn't rage that lifted him. It was vision, silence, consistency. Just like you, chosen one. Do you see what's happening now? The same people who tried to destroy your peace are losing theirs. And they know why. Every fake win they celebrated was borrowed time. Just distractions from the deep spiritual work they refused to do. But time ran out. Control faded. Their image is cracking, and now they're stuck inside the very lie they tried to trap you in. For whatever is hidden is meant to be disclosed, and whatever is concealed is meant to be brought out into the open. Mark Erba, Esrim Vishtaim, and yet you, yes, you are arising, quietly, steadily, not in bitterness, not in drama, but in complete surrender and strength. And that's what's driving them insane. Not your vengeance, not your reaction, but your refusal to react, your growth, your detachment, your peace. Let's not forget Selena Gomez. After years of being mocked, lied on, and dragged in public feuds, she chose silence, healing, art. She turned pain into purpose, and now the world watches her from a new light. Her strength was in not needing to clap back. That's the same strength you carry now. They expected you to explode, but instead, you expanded. They baited you into chaos, but you chose clarity. They thought your silence was fear, but it was transformation. Now karma is working full-time, and their reality is crumbling from every angle. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Salmea Vishmuna Sara, Isarim Vishtaim. And maybe you're asking yourself, why did it take this long? But here's the truth. Delay is never denial. Justice doesn't always come with sirens and flames. Sometimes it comes in a slow, sacred unraveling layer by layers so precise. No one can deny it when it lands. And now, it has landed hard, loud, undeniable, just like Tyler Perry, who was homeless before he built an empire. He was dismissed, laughed at, betrayed, but he didn't collapse. He created, and the same doors that were slammed in his face, he now owns the buildings they were attached to. Number 2, silent battles. Loud outcomes. Chosen one. They truly believed your silence was a sign of surrender. They laughed in circles, thinking they had crushed your spirit. But what they failed to understand is that silence, in the hands of the chosen, is never weakness. It's a weapon. While they snickered behind screens, sent petty messages, screenshot your posts, and whispered about you in rooms you weren't even invited to. They thought they were winning. They believed the lies they created and took joy in manipulating perception. They mocked you for being too sensitive, brushed off your discomfort as imaginary, and acted like your intuition was delusion. But ask yourself, it was all in your head. Why did they invest so much energy trying to break it? Every backhanded compliment, every subtle jab, every shady emoji was a trap. They weren't joking. They were testing you, pushing buttons, hoping to provoke a reaction that would give them permission to label you as unstable, dramatic, or angry. But you didn't fall for it. You didn't swing back. You didn't stoop to their level. And that's exactly what enraged them. You chose wisdom over retaliation. You understood that not every insult needs a rebuttal. Some battles are best won by not showing up at all. And in doing so, you activated a deeper lavone that silences the enemy through divine justice rather than human effort. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus pais presece, pais presece. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Proverbs 15:1. You weren't quiet because you had nothing to say. You were quiet because you knew speaking would lower your frequency. You understood that what they were trying to pull you into wasn't worth the energy it would cost you. And so, you let them talk. You let them plot. You let them assume you were weak. But here's the truth. They couldn't comprehend. While they were feeding their egos, you were feeding your endurance. While they stirred chaos, you cultivated clarity. While they craved applause, you built legacy in silence. Consider Beyoncé, who has often been ridiculed, misunderstood, and provoked, yet she rarely reacts publicly. Instead, she disappears, works in silence, and re-emerges with projects so powerful, the entire industry stops. That's not ego. That's divine strategy. Just like you, your silence wasn't absent seat, was preparation. Every quiet night, every tear you refused to show, every betrayal you forgave without an apologet was all part of the molding. You were becoming the storm they tried to drag you into. And here's where it gets spiritual. Every chosen one goes through this. The long nights, the inner doubts, the emotional weight that no one sees. Those moments when you question your own worth because of how others treated you, when you wonder if your sensitivity is a flaw, or if your boundaries are too high. But what if those were signs of your strength, not your weakness? What if the isolation was God's protection disguised as rejection? He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 47:3. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:18. They thought they had you figured out. They thought they had won. But what they didn't know is that those silent battles were reshaping you, strengthening you. And now they're stunned, because the version of you that's walking back into the room is someone they can't touch. You're calmer, sharper, more discerning. You're untouchable. Why do you think manipulators fear the ones they used to control the most? It's not because you said anything. It's because you no longer react. Your silence became your armor. And every time they watched your page, stalked your updates, or tried to provoke a response, they were met with uncertainty. That uncertainty is what's driving them insane. Think about Michael Jordan, man who rarely addressed his critics, but let his game speak for him. He endured being cut from his high school team, overlooked, doubted, and criticized. But he didn't lash. Alth leveled up. And eventually, the same people who questioned him had no choice but to witness greatness. That's your story too. Your excellence will echo louder than any lie they spread. And now, as you continue to move in silence, something remarkable is happening. The atmosphere is changing. The rooms are shifting. The very people who believed the lies are starting to see the truth. They're watching you rise with grace and wondering how they ever fell for the smear campaign. Light always reveals what was hidden in the dark. And now, that light is you. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. Ecclesiastes 12:14. You're not just surviving anymore, you're glowing. And the very ones who mocked you are watching in silence, choked by the weight of their own dishonesty. What can they say now? That you were right all along? That they feared your power and tried to ruin it before it bloomed? They won't say it, but they feel it. With every scroll through your wins, every moment they realize you're out of reach, their conscience is echoing with guilt. That's not ego, that's justice. Think of Chadwick Boseman, who endured private suffering while the world speculated. He never defended himself. He let his legacy speak. And when the truth came out, the same people who mocked him were left speechless. That's the kind of reversal only God can orchestrate. You are walking in that same quiet power now. Your world is getting brighter, simpler, and more anointed. Their world, louder, more chaotic, less controlled, not because they've stopped trying to reach you, but because your frequency no longer supports access. They aren't confused, they're blocked, spiritually, energetically, emotionally. They are no longer aligned with you. You don't have to shrink. You don't have to explain. You don't even have to correct the record. The truth is doing it for you. When the Lord takes pleasure in anyone's way, He causes their enemies to make peace with them. Proverbs 16:7. And if a part of you still wonders, should I have clapped back? Should I have spoken up? No, you chose silence. And from that silence, you built an empire. You moved with purpose when pettiness would have been easier. You carried honor when insult was on the table. And now, chosen one, the evidence is too loud to ignore. Their gossip has expired. Their lies have lost power. And your elevation, it's unstoppable. Look at Selena Gomez. Once the target of endless gossip and speculation, she turned pain into power, using her art and platform to heal, not retaliate. She rose with quiet dignity. And today, those who mocked her now admire her transformation. You've done the same. Number 3. The masks are falling and the truth is louder than ever. Chosen one. Have you noticed it lately? The shift in the air. The uneasiness in the ones who once stood tall in fake confidence. It's happening. The masks are slipping, and not even the warmest smiles can hide the venom behind their eyes anymore. These weren't just casual liars. They were full-time actors experts in the art of performance. They walked into rooms with carefully rehearsed charm, dressed in politeness, draped in charisma, yet armed with invisible daggers. Their kindness wasn't kindness at all. It was a costume. And for a while, even you were fooled. They mastered the art of false concern. They knew how to sound supportive, just enough to pass as a friend, but never enough to act like one. Their support was never about uplifting, it was surveillance. Strategic proximity. They kept themselves close to you, not because they loved your spirit, but because they feared your light. And while they smiled in your face, they were building entire narratives behind your back. They were working overtime to turn admiration into suspicion, spinning your character into question marks. But here's the beauty of the divine setup. No mask lasts forever. Nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare before the eyes of Him to whom we must give account. Hebrews 4:13. Eventually, the curtain rises, the act ends, and when it does, the makeup runs, the costume slips, and the monster beneath begins to show. That's what's happening now. Their image, the one they worked so hard to build, has started to fracture. What once looked polished and powerful now looks forced and hollow, like a glass castle built for show, but empty inside. And the world is starting to see it, not because you exposed them, but because truth always finds a way to seep through the cracks. Let's ask the obvious. Have you ever felt something off about someone, but couldn't quite explain it at the time? That's the Spirit's discernment working before your mind catches up. And now, the people who once ignored those signals are finally connecting the dots. The lies aren't aligning. The stories don't match. The charm that once felt magnetic now feels manipulative. And what's worse for them, people are talking, people are remembering, people are questioning what they used to blindly accept. Look at Elizabeth Holmes, founder of Theranos. For years, she charmed investors, the media, even world leaders. Her image was pristine. Her vision seemed noble, but it was all a performance. a multi-billion-dollar illusion. When the truth broke through, it didn't whisper, it roared, and the very platform she climbed using lies became the stage of her downfall. That's how karma works. It always finds the mask that's been worn too long. For whatever is hidden is meant to be disclosed, and whatever is concealed is meant to be brought out into the open. Mark Erba, Esarim Vishtaim, you, chosen one, didn't have to lift a finger. You stayed silent. You stayed grounded. You didn't retaliate. You didn't beg people to see the truth. You let time do the talking, and now their own behavior is exposing them. Their own ego is dragging them into the spotlight they once craved. Isn't it poetic? The very need to be admired, the obsession with appearing flawless, that's what's unraveling them. And now, the most humbling twist. The very people they once manipulated are pulling away. The same ones who clapped for them are turning silent. Loyalty built on lies doesn't last. Applause earned through charm fades when the soul behind it is rotten, and they feel it. You can see it in their eyes. The desperation, the disorientation, the fear that everything they built wasn't real and now it's slipping beyond their control. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. Proverbs 11. Dri, energy doesn't lie. That's the truth they never considered. People may not always catch a spoken lie, but they always feel when something's off. They feel when a smile doesn't match the spirit. They feel when words are hollow. And now, what once drew people in is pushing them away. Because you can't fake spiritual alignment forever. You can only perform for so long before people begin to notice the curtain shaking. Think of Armie Hammer, an actor once praised for charm and poise. Then came exposure. Shocking allegations. The image crumbled. Support vanished. And silence filled the space where praise once lived. Why? Because lies layered over time always collapse under their own weight. That's what's happening to those who tried to undermine you. And what's worse for them, there's no script left, no lines to memorize, no character to hide behind. You never needed a script. Chosen one. You never needed a role. You were authentic, even when it cost you everything. And now, while their story is being rewritten by truth, yours is being crowned with favor. You didn't chase validation. You didn't beg to be believed. You stood in truth, and truth is fighting for you now. Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out. Proverbs 10:9. Let's reflect on Bill Cosby. For decades, he held an image of being America's dad. But behind the scenes, an entirely different story was unfolding until it could no longer be contained. It's a chilling reminder that no amount of good press can hide the darkness within forever. The ones who tried to break you with charm and manipulation are learning this the hard way. And here's the shift. You're not the one in question anymore. They are. You're not the one under scrutiny. They are. While they scramble to salvage a public image, you've quietly stepped into spiritual clarity. No need to prove, no need to explain. You're glowing in truth while they suffocate in the fiction they created. Their mask has become a prison, and still, they try to reclaim what's already gone, but it won't work. Because trust, once broken, doesn't return with a smile or a story. It requires truth and accountability. And accountability is their greatest fear. The illusion they used to wear as armor, it's now crumbling at their feet. The silence surrounding them is not peace, it's exposure. It's the awkward hush that falls over a room when people realize they rooted for the wrong character. You may be sure that your sin will find you out. Numbers 32. Asarim Vishlosh. Meanwhile, you've been rising, quietly, consistently, authentically. Your strength was never rooted in how well you could pretend, it was always in your transparency. Even when they painted you as the villain, your consistency revealed your heart. And now, that consistency is speaking louder than any lie they told. Think of Princess Diana. She was ridiculed by those closest to her, misrepresented in media, and misunderstood by the world. But through it all, her sincerity never wavered, and long after her passing, her authenticity is still celebrated, while many who opposed her now face their own truth. That's the legacy of the real ones, and it's your legacy too. Number 4. The trap backfired and the collapse is undeniable. Chosen one. There's something divine about watching a trap designed for your destruction fold back on its architect. You didn't set the fire. You didn't throw the first stone. But somehow, you're the one who keeps rising through the ashes while they sink into the hole they dug with their own bitterness. Isn't it ironic? The very people who plotted your downfall are now caught in a web of their own making. But let's take a closer look at how this all unfolded. Because there's a powerful lesson in what just happened. They planned it carefully, didn't they? In secret, in shadows, like architects of chaos. They mapped out every detail. Each lie was a brick, every whispered rumor, every side comment disguised as concern, every fake apologite, all became part of the structure. They wanted to build a cage for you, a narrative that would hold your peace hostage and turn your name into a cautionary tale. And they didn't just gossip. They studied you, watched your moves, waited for a weakness to weaponize. It wasn't shade they threw, it was warfare. Dressed in social pleasantries and double taps on passive-aggressive posts. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. Proverbs. 27, 27. But what they didn't account for was the divine law of return. You reap what you sow, multiplied. And karma doesn't show up wearing labels or making announcements. It simply mirrors back the energy sent out quietly, precisely, and without apology. What they intended for harm is now being returned, full circle, and with interest. You see, they thought you'd break. They were betting on it. Every slight, every microaggression, every public smirk and private jab, they hoped it would be the one to push you over the edge. Their end goal, to provoke you, to capture you, lashing out, to paint you as unstable, to validate the lies they were already feeding to others. They tried to make you look like the villain while they stood back with clean hands, saying, "See, we were right. Aibo, but you didn't take the bait." That's what flipped the whole thing on its head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12:21. Instead of reacting, you elevated. Instead of shouting, you observed. Instead of exposing them, you let the universe reveal the truth. And now that trap, it's not just failing, it's collapsing, brick by brick. Under the very ones who built it, they're walking through life in a cloud of confusion, watching their relationships dissolve, their influence shrink, their names spoken in hushed tones, not with honor, but with suspicion. Take a moment. Have you noticed how the confidence they once carried has vanished? How the boldness they used to weaponize is now replaced with paranoia? They walk into rooms and can't tell who's heard the truth. They smile, but their eyes dart. They post online, but delete comments in panic. The trap they constructed for you has become their own spiritual prison, and not a single word had to leave your mouth to make it happen. For we are only as strong as our integrity. and only as safe as the truth we stand on. Psalm 5, 2. You chose wisdom. You chose to keep your hands clean. You walked away from the fight, not because you were afraid, but because you had already won the war in your spirit. And that's what triggered the collapse. The very thing they believed made you weak. Your silence, your calm, your refusal to stoop was the move that turned the whole trap against them. Look at Nelson Mandela. Imprisoned for decades by a system determined to destroy him, they framed him, silenced him, buried his name in criminal labels. But the world watched, and when the truth emerged, it wasn't just a personal victory, it was a national awakening. He rose, not because he fought back with vengeance, but because he endured with dignity. Sound familiar? That's you. You endured the trap without feeding it, and now it's crumbling from within. Have you ever witnessed someone unravel without a single blow being thrown? That's what this is. They're spiraling, and not because anyone is attacking them. The truth is doing the work. Their own words are returning like echoes with knives. The alliances they built through manipulation are breaking. Their inner circle is shrinking. Their name, once praised, is now whispered with caution. And all of it is happening without your involvement. That's divine justice. The Lord is a God of justice. Blessed are all who wait for him. Isaiah 30:18. The twisted beauty of karma is that it matches tone. The lies they used to tangle your image are now suffocating their own. The confusion they tried to manifest in your life is swallowing their clarity. The fear they hoped you'd live in is now the lens through which they see the world. They're being haunted by the same energy they used to hunt you. You were never the villain. You were the mirror, and that's what they couldn't handle. Your light revealed what they wanted to hide. Your peace highlighted their chaos. Your truth disturbed their fiction, and rather than face themselves, they chose to attack you. But in attacking you, they exposed their own weakness. They revealed what was lurking behind the mask: envy, insecurity, desperation. And now the mask is off. The performance is over. And they're left with silence. The kind of silence that wraps around a person who knows they've been found out. There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. Luke 12:2. Let's talk about Malala Yousafzai. They tried to silence her with a bullet to the head. They hoped to bury her message, but instead, her voice echoed across the globe. She became the youngest Nobel Prize laureate not because she fought with violence, but because she stood for truth even in pain. That's the essence of what you've done. You stood. You didn't react. You radiated. And now the very people who tried to paint you as unstable are losing their own balance. The stage they built to humiliate you is now empty. No audience. No script. No applause. Their influence is fading. Their control has slipped, and they can't figure out why the same tactics no longer work. But you know why. The trap has shut hand. They're the only ones inside. Think of Joseph in the Bible. His own brothers sold him, lied on him, tried to eliminate him out of jealousy. But every step they took to destroy him led him closer to purpose. Eventually, they had to bow before the same one they betrayed. That's the energy you're walking in. You didn't retaliate. You didn't beg. You waited. You healed. And now the story is turning. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done. Genesis 50:20. There's something poetic about divine reversal, about watching the enemy of your peace fall into the very hole they dug. And that's what you're witnessing now. The same people who thought they were clever are unraveling with precision. No need for revenge. No need for clapbacks. Your consistency, your peace, your growth, it's all doing the talking for you. Look at Johnny Depp, slandered in public, smeared across headlines, his name dragged through fire. But he stayed the course, and when the truth came to light, the same media that demonized him had to rewrite the story. That's karma. That's restoration. And it only comes to those who wait with integrity. You, chosen one, are walking in a justice so divine. It doesn't require your fingerprints. You didn't have to sabotage. You didn't have to smear. You didn't even have to defend. All you had to do was keep walking. And now, the universe is showing who was really behind the curtain all along. So don't look back. Don't explain. Don't argue. You have nothing to prove to people who were never ready for the truth. Let them sit in the silence they once used to torment you. That silence has become your vindication. That stillness has become your roar. The Lord will vindicate me, your love. Lord, endures forever. Psalm 138 Shmuna. They thought they were burying you, but they were only planting you in soil enriched by truth. And now, as you rise, they're sinking, not because of anything you did, but because of everything they did and refused to admit. The pit has turned inward. The setup has reversed. The lies have caved in, and what's left? You, elevated. Them, exposed. That's the trap backfiring. That's divine order. That's justice. And it's just the beginning. Number 5. You took the high road, and that's why you're unreachable now. Chosen one. There's a sacred strength in the high road. It doesn't shout. It doesn't storm. It doesn't try to prove. And yet, it's the road with the clearest view when the dust finally settles. You took that road not because it was easy, not because you didn't have reasons to retaliate, but because you knew exactly who you were. And now, while they drown in the mess they created, you're standing in clarity. Let's be honest, they tried everything to drag you down. You remember, don't you? The passive-aggressive digs, the carefully orchestrated drama, the sly comments laced with just enough venom to sting, but not enough for the crowd to notice. They whispered lies when no one was looking, hoping to spark chaos in plain sight. They poked at your wounds, baited your emotions, and set traps crafted from ego and manipulation. Their end goal was simple: to get you to break character. They wanted you reactive, loud, explosive. Why? Because if you had matched their energy, you would have justified their lies. But you didn't. And that, chosen one, is what broke their plan in half. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Proverbs 15:1. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. Romans 12:17. They underestimated your discernment. They couldn't comprehend why you didn't lash out when they hit below the belt. And truthfully, it confused even some onlookers. Why didn't you defend yourself? Why didn't you scream the truth from the rooftops? But deep down, you knew something they didn't. Real power doesn't beg to be understood. Real strength doesn't scream for validation. Some battles are beneath your calling, and some responses are just distractions dressed as justice. Have you ever asked yourself, did I make a mistake by staying silent? That's what they wanted you to think. They wanted you to question your dignity. But you didn't choose silence out of weakness. You chose it out of mastery. While they scrambled to be seen, you were being refined. While they built illusions, you were building integrity. The high road looked lonely, but heaven was watching. And now, the reward is undeniable. Think of Michelle Obama. When they go low, they go high. She said it, and she lived it, while critics mocked, judged, and misrepresented her family. She carried herself with class. She didn't throw stone, she planted seeds. And what grew from that? Legacy, global respect, and a reputation that no gossip could tarnish. That's what you've tapped into. The high road isn't for the fragilites, for the fortified. You could have clapped back. You could have exposed the truth. You could have scorched the earth beneath their feet with receipts and facts. And who could have blamed you? But instead, you chose patience. You chose peace. You chose to protect your destiny rather than trade it for a moment of petty revenge. And now the universe is honoring you in a way they never expected. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus pais presece, pais presece. Better a patient person than a warrior. One with self-control than one who takes a city. Proverbs 16:32. While they were recruiting allies with manipulation, you stood alone with authenticity. While they gathered gossip, you gathered grace. They expected you to crack, to combust, to self-sabotage. But you elevated. You chose balance over bitterness. And now the very storm they tried to suck you into is raining on their own parade. Look at Keanu Reeves, one of the most respected yet quiet actors in Hollywood. He's endured tragedy, betrayal, and exploitation, yet he never retaliates. His grace, humility, and silence have become his brand. And what did it earn him? Reverence. A career they can't cancel. A legacy they can't taint. That's what grace under fire looks like. That's what you're walking in. Your refusal to stoop down didn't go unnoticed by heaven. Every moment you swallowed your pride, held your tongue, walked away from what you could have destroyed, it was recorded. And now, as their chaos catches up to them, your peace is multiplying. You didn't fight fire with fire. You built an entire mountain so high. Their flames couldn't even reach you. That mountain is made of integrity, discipline, faith, and alignment. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Galatians 6:9. Have you noticed how the story has shifted? How the ones who once painted you as the problem are now scrambling to control the narrative. They're watching the truth surface through your results. The clarity in your eyes, the peace in your walk, the blessings in your life. Truth doesn't need to scream. It simply shows up wearing fruit, and your fruit is undeniable. While they tried to create smoke, you became a lighthouse. While they collected people to believe their performance, you stood quietly in purpose. They don't understand how you're still standing after all they threw your way. They're confused. But the answer is simple. You were never relying on human support. You were rooted in divine protection. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. And every tongue which rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. Isaiah 54:17. Think of Nelson Mandela, who took the high road for 27 years in prison. They locked up his body, but they couldn't imprison his character. And when he emerged, it wasn't with bitterness, it was with vision. He led, he forgave, he transformed a nation. You may not be changing a government, but you are transforming your world. And it began the moment you chose elevation over ego. Now, they're left asking questions in rooms you no longer occupy. They're scrolling your life with silent regret, realizing that your lack of retaliation was your loudest victory. You didn't curse them. You outgrew them. And now they're stuck in the same cycles while you've moved on to a different dimension mentally, emotionally, spiritually. The rooms they once polluted with gossip are now void of your energy. They can't even mention your name without tasting their own bitterness. Let's not forget Taylor Swift, who was publicly mocked and torn apart in the media. They tried to bait her, misquote her, discredit her, but she disappeared and came back stronger, clearer, and more intentional. She used her voice to reclaim the narrative and did it with poise. Now she walks in arenas where her name fills the air with admiration, not accusation. You're on that same arc. They may not clap now, but the world will notice later. You're glowing no, and not from anger, but from alignment. And the most beautiful part, you didn't have to break anyone to get here. You didn't manipulate. You didn't campaign for validation. You simply stayed the course. And that calmness, that maturity, that's what's shattering every trap they set. The storm they stirred, it's raining on them. The confusion they tried to plant, it's blooming in their own minds. And you're untouchable. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Matthew 5, Tisha. The high road didn't just protect your future, it preserved your crown. And now that crown sits heavy, but righteous, on your spirit. They can't understand it, but they feel it. And maybe, on some nights, you still wonder, did I miss my moment to defend myself? Did I let them win by staying silent? Let me answer that with certainty. No, you didn't lose anything. You spared yourself. You trusted divine timing over emotional reaction. You knew that what's meant for you can't be blocked by a whisper. And what's not meant for you won't stick, no matter how loud the lie. And now, the separation is undeniable. You're walking into rooms they'll never be invited into. Not because you kept people out, but because your energy evolved beyond the access level of those who once tried to drag you. Their performances have ended. The audience has gone home. The lights are off. And you're building something real, something eternal, something rooted in truth. Think of Chadwick Boseman, who carried his purpose in silence while the world speculated. He never defended, never lashed out. He let the work speak, and when he passed, the world realized they had been in the presence of greatness. That's what you carry: quiet power, authentic light, divine purpose. Number 6. The cracks in their circle were the confirmation of your calling, God's chosen one. What you're witnessing right now isn't just petty fallout, it's divine justice, exposing a counterfeit alliance. It might have once seemed like they were united, like they moved in perfect sync, whispering in corners and smirking as if they had you figured out. They linked arms, not out of love, but out of mutual hatred for your light. They weren't allies, they were co-conspirators in a lie, clinging together because your very existence made them uncomfortable. But the truth, evil never creates loyalty, it only breeds leverage. And now that their mission failed, they're turning on each other like wolves over scraps. Can you feel it? The tension in their silence. The way those once smiling faces are now full of suspicion. The ones who laughed at your pain are now biting their lips in fear that their secrets are next. They built their circle on sand. And now the storm is here. If a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand. Mark 3:25. What was once whispered, alliance has turned into loud chaos. Now the shade comes wrapped in compliments. The blame is flying like arrows, and the energy completely unstable. Because what begins in manipulation will always end in mayhem. You were never fighting an army of truth. They were just desperate people masquerading as friends. Now they're collapsing under the same darkness they tried to bury you in. Think about the fall of Enron. At its peak, this global company seemed unstoppable. Executives smiled together in meetings, presented a front of unity. But behind closed doors, it was built on lies, greed, and mutual cover-ups. When the truth broke through, the same people who stood side by side quickly began turning each other in. Loyalty vanished. Leverage kicked in. Do you see the pattern now? When evil gathers to harm the chosen, it self-destructs without you lifting a hand. Have you ever wondered why they obsessed over you so much? Why so many people you barely interacted with seem to have an opinion? It's because your presence activated something they couldn't control: conviction. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. Galatians 6:12 said, they sowed division, gossip, schemes, and now what's sprouting? Paranoia, arguments, betrayal. The very same whispers they used against you have become their undoing. And what's wild, you didn't even retaliate. You simply kept walking, and the path behind you started crumbling. Judas Iscariot. He aligned with religious leaders not because he loved them, but because he hated how Jesus disrupted the status quo. His betrayal didn't just lead to a temporary gain, it led to his own despair and death. There's no lasting glory in unholy unity. They didn't bond over purpose, they bonded over pettiness. And you, chosen one, was simply the mirror that revealed how broken they already were. The Lord brings the counsel of the nations to nothing. He makes the plans of the peoples of no effect. Psalm 33 Aser. What happens when people gather in bitterness? The bond decays. The mask slips. What looked like a tight crew is now exposed as a group of individuals barely holding it together, and you're not in the middle of it. You're not defending yourself. You're not proving your worth. You're just watching as divine exposure handles what your mouth never had to explain. Look at the downfall of Elizabeth Holmes and the inner circle at Theranos. At first, investors and executives acted like a family confidant, united, mission-driven. But the moment things unraveled, everyone turned on each other, finger-pointing, depositions, secrets exposed. Because when the root is deceit, the fruit is destruction. Do you understand now why they had to come together to come against you? Because none of them had the strength to stand alone. You were too solid, too centered, too anointed. Let me ask you, why do you think your silence shook them more than any comeback ever could? Why do you think your elevation seems to ignite their downfall? Because the moment you stopped fighting in their mud pit, God started fighting for you. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus pais presece, pais presece. Now, that circle is crumbling. Friends turning into enemies. Secrets leaking like a broken dam. The same ones who high-fived each other after mocking you are now questioning each other's motives. The karma they called down on your life is sitting in their own kitchen now, and you didn't even have to light the fire. Think about the feud between former best friends Kanye West and Jay-Z. At one point, they stood at the height of their Unity albums together. Tours, public praise, but pride, betrayal, and unresolved bitterness cracked that bond. Now, their former alliance is marked by tension and silence, and the collapse has been public, messy, and unrepairable. You, God's chosen one, weren't just spared, you were strategically removed. God hid you while he dismantled the structures built to harm you, and now he's preparing a table not in another room, but in the presence of those who plotted your exile. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Psalm Esarim Veshalosh Chamash. Here's a question. What if the betrayal had to happen to prove that you were never part of their blueprint? What if the collapse was confirmation not of your weakness, but of your calling? Look at what happened to Princess Diana. She was targeted, isolated, slandered by royal insiders, but she chose truth, transparency, and quiet dignity. And in the end, the very system that tried to control her image fell apart, and she became a symbol of grace, power, and legacy that still commands global respect. Number 7. Your absence is power. There comes a time when your greatest move isn't what you say, it's what you don't. And chosen one, you finally realized it. You didn't lose anyone. They lost you. Not because you became cold, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally saw the game, the manipulation, the gossip, the poking, the endless baiting, and you decided you would no longer be a pawn. You stepped off the board, and in that single, sacred decision, everything shifted. Does it ever haunt them how quiet you've become, how unavailable, how peaceful? Your silence is not emptiness. It's a declaration. Your distance is not a void. It's power. And not just any power. It's the kind of power that comes after surviving the storm, healing the wound, and realizing you no longer owe access to people who only showed up to drain you. They fed off your energy. That's what they really wanted. Not your love, not your truth, not even your presence, just your reaction. Every time you defended yourself, they felt seen. Every time you corrected their lies, they felt important. Every time you tried to fix what they intentionally broke, they felt control. And then one day, without announcement, you chose stillness. You unplugged. You stopped chasing clarity from the unclear. You stopped attending arguments you never asked to be part of. You stopped showing up to be misunderstood on purpose. And that's when the power flipped. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Proverbs 26:4. Chosen one. Your absence has become their torment, because now the room doesn't shift when they enter it. Your name doesn't respond when they throw shade. Your soul doesn't rattle when they poke. They scream into the dark now, hoping to summon the old version of you, but you've transcended. They don't realize you were the light source, not the shadow. They fed off your energy like spiritual parasites, needing you to engage so they could breathe. But now, without you, the air is thin. Take Oprah Winfrey, for example. She's been publicly slandered, misunderstood, mocked, and even betrayed by former friends. But what has made her unstoppable? Her poise, her refusal to be dragged into the mud of media gossip. She lets success speak while she remains focused. Her absence from petty conversations is exactly what protects her presence in powerful ones. That same principle applies to you, and they're panicking now, aren't they? Trying to provoke you again through rumors, through mutual connections, through indirect posts and masked sarcasm. But you're no longer reachable in that way, because you now understand this truth. When you stop dancing, the music in their circus stops playing, and they don't know how to handle that silence. Let's pause and ask this. Why did they need your reaction so badly? Why was your peace such a threat? Why is your distance causing more chaos than your presence ever did? Because they never had peace themselves, and they only felt powerful when you were destabilized. But now the script has flipped. You didn't fight. You didn't argue. You just left. not always physically, but energetically, spiritually, emotionally. And that withdrawal is collapsing every tower they built on your energy. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus pais presece, pais presece. Stillness is a weapon. Silence is strategy. And absence, that's divine warfare. It's what leaves them confused, wrestling with shadows, trying to replay a game that no longer exists. They're yelling into the void, but there's no echo. You're gone. There's a story from Nelson Mandela's time in prison. For years, he was mistreated by guards who tried to provoke him, dehumanize him, break him. But Mandela shows dignity. His silence made them question themselves. His peace made them feel small. His absence from emotional chaos became a mirror to their spiritual emptiness. And by the time he walked out of prison, he had more moral authority than his captors. That's your story too. You've walked out, not from a prison of walls, but a prison of projection. They tried to box you in, make you the villain, the angry one, the unstable one. But when you chose not to respond, you exposed their manipulation. You broke their illusion. And now, they're unraveling. You might be wondering, should I have said more? Should I have told my side? Should I have exposed what they did? No. You chose correctly. You chose you. You chose the sacred over the shallow. And the result, you've become untouchable. Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. Proverbs 17:28, chosen one. This kind of restraint is spiritual mastery, the kind most can't even begin to comprehend, and that's why they never saw it coming. They were preparing for a fight. You were preparing for flight upward, not retreat, ascension. They were hoping to bait you, but all they caught was themselves. Consider how Beyoncé handles scandal. Rarely does she respond directly. She stays silent, creates, rises, and somehow the silence speaks louder than any interview ever could. The focus stays on her work, not her wounds. And in that same way, your absence has become your microphone. You don't need to yell. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to revisit places where your value was never recognized. Let them talk. Let them spin. Let them invent stories to explain your silence. None of it matters, because the only story that's real is the one your life is telling now. Elevation, healing, peace. In quietness and in trust shall be your strength. Isaiah 30:15. Do you feel it? The strength in your stillness. The way your peace is now your protection. You're no longer on their radar, and that bothers them more than any confrontation ever could. Because your detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means power. It means freedom. Think about Michael Jordan's legendary silence during his early retirements. People speculated, gossiped, argued. But when he came back bigger, better, stronger. His absence wasn't the end. It was the reset, and yours is, too. Your absence isn't an exit. It's an evolution. It's proof that you're now led by purpose, not emotion. That you don't need to prove your worth to people who never honored it. That you don't need closure from doors God Himself has shut. You're not missing. You're maturing. And let's be honest, some people only respected you when they had access to you. Now that you've set boundaries, they call you distant, difficult, or disloyal. But they never valued you. They only valued what they could extract. Now that you're inaccessible, they're forced to sit with the echo of their own noise. They don't know what to do without your light, without your energy, without your endless empathy. And that absence, It's louder than any speech. Set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the door of my lips. Salma 40 v'achat shlosh. You've become the one they can't provoke, the one they can't predict, the one who stopped showing up to be drained, and it terrifies them. Number 8. The unseen growth. God's chosen one. They didn't lose you because you suddenly became someone new. They lost you because you started remembering who you truly were all along. You didn't vanish, you evolved. While they were still playing checkers in a game of ego, you stepped off the board and began mastering chess in silence. And in that silence, something holy started to unfold. You stopped chasing explanations. You stopped auditioning for approval. And most importantly, you stopped defending your name in rooms that were never built for your destiny. Can you feel it now, that sacred stillness that became the soil for your transformation? Because what they couldn't see was the growth that happened beneath the surface. They mistook your quiet for weakness, but you weren't breaking. You were blooming. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Isaiah 40:31. Do you know how powerful it is to grow where no one can see? To be pruned, refined, stretched in places the world will never understand. It's easy to recognize someone shining in the spotlight, but chosen ones, it's what happens in the hidden places, in the midnight hours, in the silent prayers, in the daily battles against your own doubts that builds the kind of power nobody can take from you. That's the kind of power you're carrying now. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how much you've grown when no one was watching, while they assumed you were stagnant? You were being sanctified. While they whispered about your absence, heaven was whispering your instructions. And while they threw shade, the Most High was throwing seeds into your soul that would grow into fruit they couldn't digest. Just like Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison, not forgotten, but forming. The world assumed his silence was defeat. But he emerged with more moral authority and vision than ever before. That's you. Your isolation wasn't punishment. It was preparation. And now the ones who overlooked you are about to be overwhelmed by what God has grown in you. So let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap, if we do not give up. Galatians 6:9. Why is it that they only started to panic when you went quiet? Because your growth wasn't just internal, it was disruptive. Your silence disrupted their control. Your peace shook their chaos. The moment you stopped engaging, you unplugged the very power source they depended on. Your energy, your empathy, your light. Have you considered this? What if your elevation was never meant to be announced, but revealed through evidence? What if God was hiding you for a reason, to grow you without contamination, to protect your roots while they were still delicate? They didn't understand that pulling back wasn't you quitting, it was you entering sacred training. Every unanswered call, every declined invitation, every boundary you built was you claiming your garden. And gardens don't grow overnight. They grow in silence, under pressure, with care. Remember Maya Angelou? She wrote her most powerful work, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. After enduring deep trauma and years of silence, the world saw her artistry, but her voice was forged in fire. So is yours. Your silence wasn't absence, it was anointing. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 5:13. They wanted your reaction. They craved your attention, because your presence always came with power and they were addicted to it. But when you withdrew, When you chose clarity over chaos, they were left chasing ghosts of who you used to be. And the irony? The more they try to provoke, the more they reveal how powerless they've become without your light. Have you noticed how the very people who once said you were too much now act lost without your presence? How the ones who mocked your healing journey are now spiraling in their own unhealed wounds? That's not coincidence. That's karma. That's divine reversal. That's what happens when you stop pouring into those who were poking holes in your cup. It's the story of Michael Jordan, too. Cut from his high school basketball team, ridiculed, overlooked. But while others laughed, he worked. While they pointed fingers, he perfected his gift. And when the time came, his growth unseen and uncelebrated became undeniable. That's the kind of shock your elevation will bring. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Psalm 23, 5. And now look at you, stronger, sharper, silent but not small, focused but not afraid. Your prayers have gone deeper. Your discernment has grown sharper. Your peace is no longer negotiable. And even though you haven't said a word, your growth is speaking volumes. God didn't just prune you, He replanted you. And now your roots run so deep, no storm can shake you. Do you feel the shift in your spirit? Do you realize that your silence has become a form of spiritual warfare? While they were posting, performing, pretending you were building, and now, when they look at you, they can't figure out why. Nothing they do works on you anymore. It's because you've outgrown their level. You're not reachable by old attacks. You're not baited by old tricks. It's like Oprah Winfrey, who was told she wasn't fit for television and was even demoted early in her career. But she didn't retaliate, elevated. She built quietly, moved with grace, and eventually created an empire that couldn't be ignored. Like her, your unseen growth will speak for itself, being confident of this very thing, that he who has begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. Philippians 1-6. So let them keep wondering. Let them chase echoes. Let them gossip about the version of you that no longer exists. You're not called to explain the elevation that obedience created. You're not obligated to clarify growth that was orchestrated in heaven. You are not theirs to understand. You are God's to use. Stay withdrawn if that's where your growth lives. Stay unavailable if that's where your peace rests. Stay hidden if that's where your roots are still deepening. Because the tree God is growing in you is not a seasonal one, it's evergreen. It will bear fruit in and out of season. And no one who tried to curse your silence will be able to deny the power of your comeback. And the next time they try to bait you with drama, remember this: not all distance is rejection, some of it is redirection. Not all silence is retreat, some of it is strategy. You didn't walk away from the noise because you were weak. You walked away because you finally realized what you carried was too sacred to waste on people who couldn't honor it. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. Ecclesiastes 3:1. So, chosen one, protect your peace like it's prophecy, because it is. Guard your growth like it's gold, because it is. Stay still when needed, and let God be the thunder in your silence. Your unseen growth is not only evidence of your obedience, it's the reason they're unraveling. And as they fall apart, trying to reclaim the old version of you, they'll realize too late, you've become someone they'll never have access to again. Number 9. The universe is responding. Chosen one. You need to understand this. What's happening right now is not a coincidence. It's not just life. It's not what goes around comes around in a vague, half-hearted way. Gnosis is divine law, spiritual alignment, and cosmic order, all moving in real time. The universe may seem silent for a while, but when it finally speaks, when it finally responds, it doesn't whisper, it roars. You are witnessing the consequences of actions that were sown in secret. You're seeing energy that was once directed toward your destruction boomerang with divine precision. Does it feel surreal, like you're watching justice unfold from a front row seat? That's because you are. The attacks you endured weren't just personal, they were energetic violations. They messed with the chosen one. And now the vibration of the universe is correcting the scale. What you're seeing is not karma as superstition, it's karma as law, immutable, unstoppable, unapologetic. Have you noticed the shift lately? The very ones who tried to crush your spirit now seem weighed down by their own chaos. Things they once bragged about are suddenly crumbling. They're losing opportunities, relationships, peace. You might even catch them online trying to paint the perfect picture, but something's off. Behind the filtered smiles and curated captions, there's tension, panic, unspoken fear. Why now? Why all at once? Because the universe was patient, but not blind. Every lie they told, every manipulation they performed, every scheme they hatched behind your back, it was all being recorded. The universe doesn't operate on your timeline, but it never forgets. Their deceit was written in invisible ink, and now it's being exposed under divine light. The Bible says, "Do not be deceived, God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap." Galatians 6-7. That principle doesn't just apply to spiritual matters, it governs everything. Energy, words, intentions. You sow in betrayal, you reap in collapse. You plant lies, you harvest confusion. You curse the chosen, you awaken the wrath of heaven. Take a look at history. Do you remember how Judas thought he could betray Jesus with a kiss? As if no one would ever know the weight of his intention. That small act brought a divine response that shook the spiritual realm. Betrayal never escapes judgment, and like Judas, many who moved against you did it with a smile, thinking their mask would protect them. But the mask is cracking, the smile is twitching, and now they're learning. The universe takes notes with a pen that bleeds in truth. Consider the downfall of Bernie Madoff. He built a house of lies, deceived thousands, and for years it looked like he was untouchable. But the universe wasn't idle. When the truth came out, it roared with the power of divine balance. His entire empire collapsed in disgrace. That's not just man's justice, that's spiritual alignment, catching up with arrogance. Have you ever wondered why your peace is increasing while their noise is escalating? Because while they were busy trying to control perception, you were busy healing. While they obsessed over revenge, you surrendered. And that surrender, it wasn't weakness, it was power. The power to let go and let the universe respond in ways you never could. That's why strange favor is finding you now. That's why you're walking into rooms you weren't even invited to. Why things are working for you with no logical explanation. Isaiah 61:7 says, "Instead of your shame, you shall receive double honor." You see, chosen one. This moment was always coming. The same energy they used to try and bury you is now digging their own pit. The same spotlight they tried to steal is now illuminating their true nature. Real-life example. Look at Taylor Swift. After being publicly ridiculed, gaslighted, and lied about, she disappeared for a season. But when she returned, she didn't come back bitter. She came back stronger, clearer, and with more power than ever. The same media that once mocked her ended up praising her brilliance. That's the universe responding, even in Scripture. Joseph was thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely imprisoned. But God didn't forget. Genesis 50-20 records Joseph's words, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." When the universe moves, it does so with holy purpose. You don't always see it building, but when it strikes, it realigns everything. Isn't it strange how their betrayals are now unraveling in public? You're not even seeking revenge, and yet the consequences are louder than anything you could have orchestrated. Their own actions are speaking against them. Their own guilt is leaking through every post, every nervous laugh, every avoidance of your name. That's not chance. That's confirmation. Romans 12:19 tells us, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay,' and repay he will through divine timing. Not petty timing, through balance. Not drama, through law. Not impulse." You might have felt like you were being ignored while they flourished, but now everything is turning. The universe isn't just responding to theme, it's responding to you, your integrity, your perseverance, your silence in the face of lies. You may not have had proof to defend yourself back then, but you didn't need it. Proverbs 3:6 promises, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding, and he shall direct your paths." And now look where that path has led you, into peace, into favor, into clarity, even in modern times. Consider actor Brendan Fraser. He vanished from the public eye, rejected, ridiculed, even blacklisted by some, but he never lashed out. He disappeared. He healed. And when the time was right, the universe responded. He re-emerged with more respect, more dignity, and more impact than ever before. Have you realized you don't even want revenge anymore? That's because you're evolving. You've tapped into a higher vibration. Your focus has shifted from proving them wrong to walking in what's right. And that's where your true power lies. You're not crazy for sensing the shift. You're not overthinking it. This is real. Their towers are shaking because their foundation was corrupt. And your peace is steady because your roots were planted in truth. So, keep walking. Chosen one. Keep building in silence while heaven announces your progress. Keep healing, even when they provoke. Let the universe do what it does. Best respond with balance. Psalm 37:7 declares, "Be still before the Lord, and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways. When they carry out their wicked schemes, you have no idea how many blessings are being arranged behind the scenes because you chose not to retaliate. You chose peace, and peace is powerful." One final example. Malala Yousafzai, shot for simply advocating education, silenced in the most brutal way possible, but she didn't retaliate with violence. She healed. She elevated. And the universe responded. Now she's a global symbol of strength. And her attackers, forgotten shadows of hate. So ask yourself, do you trust the roar of the universe, even when it's silent? Do you believe that your silence is not absence, but sacred force? Do you recognize the divine response in your elevation? Because chosen one, it's happening. This is your confirmation. You're not delusional, and you're not alone. You're aligned. This isn't the end of the response. It's just the beginning. You don't have to clap back. The universe already did. You don't have to correct the narrative. The truth is louder. Let them scramble. Let them explain. Let them run from their own echo. Meanwhile, you stay steady. Stay focused. Stay chosen. The universe is not just responding to what they did wrong. It's responding to everything you did right. Number 10. Truth over time. Chosen one. Have you noticed how quiet lies become when truth finally finds its voice? You've been patient, more patient than anyone knew, while they painted over their betrayal with charm and charisma, while they curated stories to keep themselves looking innocent and noble. You waited. You didn't retaliate her. You didn't expose her. You let time do what time always does. Reveal. Because time, chosen one, doesn't lie. They believed their performance would outlast your reality. They thought their carefully constructed image would overshadow the truth of what really happened. For a moment, it worked. People believed them. Even you may have doubted yourself for a second, asking, was I too sensitive? Am I remembering wrong? But the spirit within you whispered, be still. And now, the unraveling has begun, not because you fought back, but because time arrived like a lion. Psalm 37:6 says, He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun. What they buried in secrecy is blooming in broad daylight. You didn't have to dig it up, they did. With every lie that grew too heavy to hold, they wore masks that fit so well. Even they believed them. But illusion has a short shelf life when truth ages like wine. The fake friendships, the backroom gossip, the smear campaigns, they're deteriorating under the spotlight of consequence. People are noticing. The stories don't add up anymore. The inconsistencies are getting louder. Have you felt the shift? Have you seen how the same people who defended them are now questioning everything? Look at the case of Elizabeth Holmes, the former Theranos CEO. For years, she built a shiny illusion of innovation and success, while the truth was locked away in silence. But time revealed it all through lawsuits, whistleblowers, and facts that couldn't stay hidden. That's the nature of deception. It decays from the inside out. Or consider Lance Armstrong. His triumphs defined a generation until the truth about performance-enhancing drugs surfaced. For a time, the charm and accomplishments muted the whispers. But the truth didn't need to scream. It just waited. And when it finally emerged, it couldn't be denied. Just like in your life. Isaiah, cat bin of fest est and tet in promises. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall run and not be weary. And chosen one, that's you. While they were busy fabricating tales to keep control, you were renewing your strength in the quiet. You were healing in the shadows they tried to push you into. What they mistook for silence was actually strategy. What they called retreat was resurrection. Have you noticed how what once hurt you no longer touches you the same way? That's because God has replaced your wounds with wisdom. Now the truth is erupting. It's not soft. It's not subtle. It's undeniable. And people are connecting the dots you saw from the beginning. The lies have outlived their usefulness. Their charm can't cover their chaos anymore. You don't need revenge. Why would you? When God already scripted your vindication. Romans 12:19 declares, Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, Vengeance is mine. I will repay, says the Lord, and repay. He will. Remember Monica Lewinsky, branded and humiliated for years while others preserved their reputations. She was forced into silence while others crafted narratives. But truth over time rebalanced the story. Now she speaks with wisdom, grace, and clarity, while others wrestle with the fallout of their choices. Chosen one. Do you feel it? The shift in how they speak your name? The way they pause before mentioning the version of the story they once swore was fact? That's not coincidence. That's time doing its sacred work. When Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery, they thought his story was over. But years later, in Genesis 50:20, Joseph told them, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." Time flipped the script. So what are you seeing now that time has matured the truth? How has your silence become your loudest testimony? Take Meghan Markle. For example, she faced public scrutiny, twisted narratives, and ruthless judgment. But over time, as more facts emerged, perspectives shifted. The truth wasn't always loud, but it lasted, and it changed everything. Eclesiastes 3:17 says, God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing. Whether it is good or evil, they thought they could outrun that. But you, chosen one, you knew better. You stayed planted, rooted, unshaken, and now the harvest is here. Number 11. You're unshaken. They're unraveling. They threw stones at you thinking they'd break you. They whispered about you, plotted in circles you were never meant to fit in, and waited for the cracks to form. But instead of shattering, you sharpened. Instead of breaking down, you built up. Every blow they meant to destroy you with only carved you deeper into the truth God already planted in you. You didn't just survive the storm, you became the storm's silence. Unbothered, unshaken, and unstoppable. They misread your silence. They mistook your withdrawal as weakness. They thought because you didn't clap back, you were crushed. But chosen one, what if your silence wasn't surrender? What if it was strategy? The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 5:13. When you didn't defend yourself, heaven did. When you stepped away, you weren't running, you were rising. You were retreating to regather your strength, to reclaim your name in private, while the universe whispered, just wait. And now, while you're walking in purpose, they're unraveling in confusion. Have you noticed? The very ones who thought they won are now drowning in the dust of their own deception. Why did they assume your peace meant defeat? Why did they think stillness meant surrender? When in truth, it was divine preparation. You chose healing instead of revenge, peace instead of payback. You didn't match their chaos. You transcended it. And that decision, that spiritual maturity, it made you untouchable. Because while they were trying to pull you into drama, you were being pulled into destiny. Now look at them. The energy is frantic. The smiles don't reach their eyes, and the lies are catching up with their breath. Take the case of Nelson Mandela, a man locked in prison for 27 years while his enemies celebrated. They thought isolation would silence him, but his silence was sacred. When he emerged, he didn't seek revenge. He led a nation. His stillness was misjudged, but it became his strength. His calm turned into a revolution. Just like you, your stillness has become your strategy, and your healing has become your loudest response. They once tried to dominate your narrative, told people who you were before you could even open your mouth. But now they can't even hold their own story straight. The web they wove with gossip and manipulation, it's collapsing on them. Not because you exposed them, but because truth doesn't need a defense. It defends itself with time. Their energy is catching up to their intentions. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. Galatians 6:7 said. Have you seen how they've started unraveling? Some are fumbling under the pressure, unable to keep their false image intact. Others are seeking sympathy in places they used to sow division. People are starting to connect the dots, the inconsistencies, the contradictions, the discomfort in their presence, because energy doesn't lie. You don't have to say a word. Their downfall is not your doing, it's the harvest of their choices. Remember Whitney Wolfe Herd? She was pushed out of Tinder, the company she co-founded, in a wave of legal and emotional turmoil. For a moment, it looked like her silence would cost her everything, but instead of reacting, she created her own empire, Bumble, and it made her one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the world. Her refusal to crumble became the foundation of her rise. What if your silence wasn't you shrinking, but you growing in dimensions the world wasn't ready to see? What if the real flex isn't retaliation, it's resurrection? They thought your distance meant defeat, but distance, for the chosen ones, is often discernment. You don't just pull away out of pain, you pull away to protect your peace, to protect your call, to protect your becoming. And now that you've emerged stronger, more grounded, more clear, they can't even look you in the eye. Why? Because your presence reminds them of what they tried to bury. And what they buried has bloomed. He will bring to light what is hidden in darkness and will expose the motives of the heart. 1 Corinthians 4-5. Chosen one. This isn't just karma, this is alignment. You're walking proof that peace wins. You're no longer reactive. You're radiant. You're no longer waiting to be understood. You're becoming who you were born to be, regardless of who gets it. You're no longer wounded. You're wise. And in that transformation, you've become untouchable. Take Simone Biles, a world-renowned gymnast who walked away from Olympic competition not because she lacked ability, but because she chose mental clarity over outside expectation. The world tried to label her quitting, but now, even those who criticized her can't ignore her strength. She didn't unravel. She refused to crumble. And her peace told a louder story than any medal could. So ask yourself this: how many times did they hope you'd crumble so they could feel tall? How often did they confuse silence with surrender and stillness with shame? They don't walk into rooms the way they used to. Their confidence isn't real anymore, it's rehearsed. The same people who laughed at your isolation are now hiding from their own exposure because they know what you've always known. Truth doesn't fade, and the energy you carry doesn't lie. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. Psalm 34:5. Look around. The ones who mocked your journey are now seeking clarity in the ruins of their own destruction. Some are scrambling for control. Some are blaming everyone but themselves. But none of them are truly free, because freedom doesn't come from dominance. It comes from alignment. And you, chosen one, are aligned. And what about Malala Yousafzai? She was silenced with violence. They thought a bullet would end her voice. But the silence that followed wasn't defeat, it was divine. It prepared her platform. She rose, not with vengeance, but with purpose, winning the Nobel Peace Prize and shifting global conversations around education. That's not just success, that's transformation. And that's your story too. You didn't need to expose anyone. They exposed themselves. Through inconsistency, through energy, through time. The very walls they built to trap you became the mirrors, reflecting their own mess. And now, every lie is echoing back to them. Not because you shouted, but because your silence was sacred. Your peace was your sword. Your stillness was your protection. And so, chosen one, now you see it clearly. Every lie, every trap, every attack wasn't your ending. It was your awakening. While they're getting hit left and right, you're rising stronger than ever, untouched by their chaos and aligned with your purpose. They tried to confuse your calling, but all they did was confirm it. They tried to bury your voice, but didn't realize you were the soil, not the seed. You didn't get buried, you got rooted, and now the bloom is unstoppable. The universe has spoken, and its response couldn't be louder. You are the proof that peace is power, that stillness is strategy, that silence, when sacred carries the loudest echo. In the end, they didn't break you, they revealed you. And now, their unraveling is not your revenge, it's your release. Keep walking, keep shining. You're no longer explaining yourself, you're embodying yourself. Thank you to every single soul who's been walking this journey with me, whether you watch silently in the background or boldly comment below. Whether you've been here since the beginning, or you just found your way here, your presence means more than you know. This message was created with you in mind, the remnant, the resilient, the radiant ones. Thank you for receiving it. If you feel moved to support this channel through a super thanks, it truly helps me keep these messages going strong. But whether you choose to give or not, please know this. I'm already beyond grateful for your time, your attention, and your spirit. Just having you here is a gift. May blessings overtake you like a flood. May clarity follow you like a shadow. May everything that was sent to destroy you collapse before it reaches your doorstep. And may you walk boldly into rooms your enemies said you'd never enter, head high, heart healed, and favor surrounding you like armor. You are untouched. You are rising, and this is only the beginning. If this message spoke to you, share it, speak it out loud, and type "I'm walking in alignment" in the comments if you feel it in your soul. Until next time, stay chosen, stay free, and stay grounded in your divine truth.